The following audio, brought to you by TSF Entertainment Podcast, may contain graphic descriptions of violence and/or audio clips of violence or sexual explicit events. Listener's discretion is advised.
What's good, TSF Entertainment Podcast? This is your boy, RETROCG, and tonight I'm joined by my co-host, Miss REALLYBTV.
Hey, what's up?
And it's True Crime Friday, so tonight we're gonna do a true crime case.
Oh, is that the name we came up? True Crime Friday?
I guess.
Okay.
CP, what are we talking about tonight?
So tonight we have a case of Faith Hedgepeth. I'm saying her name correctly, right?
Yeah, Faith Hedgepeth.
Yeah. So Faith Hedgepeth, she was a 19-year-old student at UNC Chapel Hill, and we are going to be discussing her case, which is still unsolved at this time.
From what I understand, she was attending Chapel Hill on a scholarship. She had aspirations on being the first member of her family to graduate college, and she wanted to be a pediatrician.
Yeah, but she was having some problems, which a lot of students do, transitioning from high school to college. And so her grades weren't that great first semester. So she took the second semester off, and she was going to take some summer classes, and she was even thinking about changing her major to education. Something else that about her heritage is that she was Native American or part of an indigenous tribe in North Carolina. And so that was another thing. She wanted to go back to her community and work there because resources were just lacking. So that was another part of, where she was motivated to do well. So do you want to, any more background information you want to add, or you want to just kind of jump into?
Well, just a few more things.
Okay.
During her transition, she was temporarily living with her friend, 20-year-old Karina Rosario, and they were living in a one-bedroom off-campus apartment until she was able to save up enough money to get her own place. So she was doing part-time waitressing at the local Red Robin restaurant in their city.
Yep. Yeah. I'm sorry, I was looking at my notes, but yeah.
And so Karina had previously lived in this apartment with her ex-boyfriend, Eric Takoy Jones. During this time where they were living together, they had a very tumultuous relationship, borderline abusive, from what reports that I've read in regards to their relationship. Faith would often see Karina with bruises, and they would have lots of confrontations.
Yeah, I was gonna say it wasn't borderline abusive; it was abusive.
So Eric is going to be a very important player in this story as we progress through the case.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. We'll definitely hear more about Eric. And so, to add to that, while Eric and Karina were together, Faith played a part in that because there was one particular incident that was very volatile where he kicked in the door and the police were called. She ended up getting the locks changed, but Faith actually was the one that encouraged her to get a restraining order and to finally end it. And so there was some tension between Eric and Faith because Eric basically felt like Faith was the reason why Karina broke up with him permanently.
And we'll go on to learn that 2 months from that is when Faith is found dead.
Right. And what's also interesting, again, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, is that Eric, when he moved out of Karina's apartment, he got an apartment within the same complex.
With a family member.
Yeah. So he was still living, in immediate proximity to both of them at that time.
So back in July is when all this went down with the assault Karina, where he threw her to the ground and threatened to kill her and Karina if she didn't get back together with him. So around July 2012. So let's go ahead and jump to the night of her murder, which was in September. So I think it starts off with them on the 6th of September 2012. They went to it was rush week at the college, and they went to a sorority event. And I think they got back home that night.
Right. The sorority event was at 5:45. I wrote down the times. But sorority event was at 5:45, and then they went to the library at 8 o'clock to study. Between 8:30 and 9, she sent her father a text letting him know, Faith did, letting him know about the, sorority event. It was a Native American sorority, and so she was excited at the possibility of joining the sorority again. She was very proud of her heritage, so that was something that she was excited about. They decided they were going to go out that night, and so about midnight is when they got back to the apartment.
Or when they decided to leave the apartment, because didn't they work on the paper till like 11?
Right, they got back to, well, according to the timeline I have, they got back to the apartment at midnight, and then at 12:30 they decided, well, not decided, but at 12:30 they headed out to the club. I guess they, when they got done working on their paper, they were like, okay, let's go out tonight, and they went to, because Faith was only 19, and so the club they went to was a popular club for the kids on campus who weren't yet 21. So I think it was called Thrill was the name of the club.
Yes, the Thrill.
Yeah, the Thrill. So they got to the club around 12:40, and one of the videos I watched actually had footage of them walking into the club. You could see them. It was an aerial view, so I guess the camera is like in the ceiling, so you could see them actually walking in the club at 12:40. Nobody really knows what happened while they were at the club. Nobody knows, but they know that Faith was definitely having a good time because she danced with some people. She interacted with a lot of people while she was there. And everybody described Faith as the, life of the party type person. Like she, a lot of people knew her. She had a lot of friends, got along with everybody. So that much we know, that she did interact with a lot of people at the club that night. But around 2 o'clock, Karina said that she wasn't feeling well. And so they headed out to go home because she said she was sick.
So in all the case study that I've done, I've read where they said that Karina felt like she was sick at the stomach, and she had too much to drink and she was ready to go home. Right. So en route on their way home, I believe the girls may have stopped by this fast food chain called Time Out, which I've never really heard of that restaurant before.
Listen, I lived in North Carolina and I never heard of Time Out.
Never heard of the Time Out.
I never did. When they were talking about how popular it was, I was like, it is? Okay. But go ahead.
But they make it home about 3 a.m. So you would think this would be where the story ends. Well, it's not.
It actually gets really weird.
It gets very bizarre. It's a very baffling case already. And some of the events that happened that night just makes it even more baffling and bizarre. So I think there's some phone calls and some texts that go out around anywhere from between 3 a.m. to 3:35 a.m.
Right. So according to my timeline, I have at 3:40. This is where it gets a little weird. At 3:40, Faith is on Facebook and she's sending messages to her ex-boyfriend, Brandon Jones, I think was his last name.
Edwards.
I'm sorry, Brandon Edwards. But at the same time that Faith is sending him these, and the text messages were really weird. They were like,
"Hey B, can you come over, please?
Rosie needs you really bad." Yeah, so it was really weird. But at the same time that these text messages or these
let's go back to that for a minute, because from what I understand, this is Faith's ex-boyfriend.
Right, Faith's ex-boyfriend.
But the message reads, "Hey B, can you come over here, please? Rosario needs you more than you know. Please let her know you care." So were they dating the same guy?
So that goes into my theory. I'm gonna get to my theory.
Okay.
But yes, to answer your question, that's my opinion, because that kind of goes to my theory of what I think happened.
Okay. So,
I
but a
kind of
half
think
hour
that's what
later.
happened. But
So,
while at the same time, Corinna is also calling, well, her phone is also calling Brandon.
but Brandon responds back to Faith's message with a reply that says, "Who is this?" And so at that point, I guess Karina didn't get contact. It sounds like neither one of them made contact with Brandon, or at least Brandon was kind of unresponsive to their request, because apparently Faith was trying to get him to come over. Karina was trying to make contact with him. At some point, 30 minutes later, he decides to write back and says, "Who is this?" So that didn't go any further.
Yeah,
So
4:16, it says that Brandon responded, but you said he said, "Who is this?" Okay.
And so Karina then decides to call up another gentleman, Jordan McCrae, and sounds like she was casually dating him as well. And
Right.
at that time, she asked him to come pick her up. And she left the apartment at 4:25 a.m., leaving the front door unlocked while Faith was asleep in bed. This is where I began to this is where I start having a lot of issues with this story. Given the situation with her and Eric, the restraining order, the violence, him kicking the doors down, him even living in the apartment complex, you would think that she would be a little bit more conscientious about security and not leave her front door open at 4:30 in the morning.
Well,
What are
not
we
only
doing?
that, but you can even take all of that out of the equation. You're talking about it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Your friend / roommate is asleep inside of the apartment. She doesn't even know you're leaving. Why? Take all of that out of the equation. Why would you leave the door unlocked? Because if she's temporarily staying with you, and I don't, you might have heard some of this in your research, but common sense would say to me that she has a key. And even if she doesn't have a key, if your intention was to come back first thing in the morning, which is what she sort of did, then it doesn't like go ahead and lock the door. You're locking her in, not locking her out.
Right.
It just didn't make sense to leave the door unlocked at all. Even if Eric didn't live close by, why would you do that?
So
But I think that was to cover up that there was no forced entry into the apartment, honestly. But anyway.
I agree with that. That was part of my thoughts and theories. So in this time frame between Karina leaving the apartment, she's called for a ride. She's left the apartment. She's left the apartment unlocked. Someone has let themselves into the apartment and subsequently raped and murdered Faith. So it's the next morning. And I'm not really too sure about the time that she got back home. I want
got
to
it.
say it was like right before 11 o'clock.
Right.
Because the 911 call was at 11.
So she called her friend Marisol.
Okay.
She called Marisol that morning to get a ride back to the apartment because she said she tried to call the apartment for Faith, and
That's
Faith
right.
didn't
Her
answer
and
the phone.
Marisol both tried to call Faith.
Right. And
And
they
she
thought,
was
right, they
unresponsive.
figured, right, they said nobody, Faith didn't answer the phone. So Marisol came and picked Karina up and took her back to the apartment. Now, just as a side note, this has nothing to do with the case. If that man picked you up, that man can take you home. But anyway, that's another conversation. But they go back to the apartment and they got to the apartment at 11 a.m., give or take, approximately 11 a.m. And the 911 call was made at 11:01.
And they noticed that Faith's car was
Yeah,
in
they noticed
the
her car was
parking
there.
lot. And they both proceed to go in to the apartment, and where they discovered Faith has been murdered. So what I would like to do at this point is let's just listen to the 911 call together and tell me what your thoughts are.
11:01 a.m. 44 seconds, September 7, 2012. Durham 911. Where is your emergency?
I just walked into my apartment and my friend just like she's unconscious.
Okay, what's your address, ma'am?
I live at home right next to you.
Give me the address.
I just moved here. I'm about to get it. Oh my God. It's Old Chapel Hill Road in Durham.
Okay, repeat it to me so I make sure I've got it correct.
Okay. 5639 Old Chapel Hill Road. It's
Okay, what's it?
1602.
1602?
Yes.
Okay. What's the phone number you're calling from?
201-321-8075.
Okay, you say your friend is unconscious?
He's unconscious. I just walked in the apartment and there looks like there's blood everywhere.
Listen to me. Somebody's already sending the ambulance. Okay, I need to get some information from you, and I'm gonna tell you how to help her. Okay. Okay. How old is she?
She's 19.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't want to touch her, but
listen to me. Is she breathing?
I don't know.
You need to check and see. Is she breathing?
I don't think so.
Okay, listen to me.
There's blood everywhere.
There's what?
There's blood everywhere.
Okay.
I don't know what happened.
Okay, is she on her back or is she laying on her stomach?
She's on her back, but like I think she fell off the bed because she's like off the bed. There's blood all over the pillows, like in the comforter. I just don't know what happened.
Okay. All right, listen to me, all right?
Is someone coming?
Yes, I've got somebody coming. I need for you to help her. I need for you to go up to her. We need to see if she's breathing or not. Okay?
I don't think so.
Okay. Listen to me. Go up. The paramedics are on their way. I want you to stay on the line. I'm going to tell you what to do next, all right? Are you right by her now?
Yes.
Okay. Listen carefully. Listen. She's not moving. Okay.
No.
Will you touch her arm? Tell me, how does she feel?
She's not moving.
Okay, ma'am. We need to find out if we can help her or not. You've got to, do as I'm asking so we can help her. All right? Okay. If you can, lay her flat on her back. Remove any pillows.
Lay her flat on her back.
Flat on her back. Remove any pillows.
Okay.
Okay. Kneel next to her. Look in her mouth for food or vomit. Okay. Kneel next to her. Look in her mouth for food or vomit. Tell me something. Listen to me. What is your name?
Karina. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
It's okay, honey. Listen to me. Okay. All right. Listen to me. When you touch her, how does she feel? Does she feel warm?
No, she feels cold.
She feels cold? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Don't touch anything else, okay? Don't touch anything else.
Hurry.
Okay. They're on their way. I've got police on the way to you, and I've got medics on the way. Okay?
I can't believe this.
Okay. What room is she in?
She's in my bedroom.
Okay. I want you to go back into the living room, okay?
I don't know what's going on. Like,
okay, listen to
in my room that was not here before.
Okay,
it
listen
like
to
someone
me.
that came in here.
Okay.
It really does.
All right. What did you say your name was again? Okay. Okay, listen to me. Don't touch anything else in the room. I want you to leave that room, go into the living room. You need to make sure the door is unlocked so somebody can get in, so that the medics and the police can get in when they get there. Okay?
Yes, it's unlocked.
Okay. Now tell me again.
Get here, though.
Okay, they're on their way, honey. They're coming as fast as they can. You just stay on the phone with me, all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me again what your name is.
It looks like someone had been in there because she's not like the cell. I don't know.
Okay. I've let them know. We've got everybody on the way to help you. Now, tell me again what your name is.
What?
What is your name?
Karina Rosario.
Karina?
Yes.
Okay, Karina. You sit down on the couch and don't touch anything, okay? You just sit down.
I'm not touching anything.
Okay. I just want you to sit down because the police and the medics are going to be there. They're coming just as fast as they can, all right?
Okay.
You just stay on the phone with me.
Okay.
You just stay on the phone with me.
Are you sure they're coming?
Yes, ma'am. They are on their way.
I just can't believe that. No, someone had to have been in there.
Okay. We've got first responders on the way. There's a fire truck coming. There's a medic coming, and the sheriff's department's on the way to you.
Okay.
You just stay on the phone with me until somebody gets there with you. All right?
Okay.
Okay, Karina. How old are you, Karina?
I'm 20.
You're 20? Okay, hon. You're doing all right. You're doing all right. You just stay on the phone with me.
I see the police.
You see the police?
Yes.
Okay. You let me know when they get in there with you, and then you can talk to them, all right?
Okay.
I just don't want you to be alone right now.
Okay.
Okay? You just stay on the phone with me.
Okay.
Are they in there with you? They coming in?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, honey. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, so do you want to start with this 911 call or shall I?
Go ahead, go ahead.
I have several issues with the 911 call. And I have to take into consideration that, one, she's under a considerable amount of duress at the moment. She just found her roommate, her friend, murdered in her bedroom. So I can only imagine how unnerving that is. However, there's things that weren't mentioned in the 911 call that concerns me more, like how she totally forgets to omit the fact that someone else was there. Marisol was there. And it said that Marisol was in the room with Faith during the call. She doesn't mention anyone else being there at the apartment. So the 911 operator is under the impression that she's there alone and discovered the body. Secondly, I do not feel that she followed any of the directives from the 911 operator. I do not feel like she laid Faith's body on the ground, face down. Well, excuse me, on her back, like she asked her to.
Well, we know she didn't, because the police found her still sitting up,
hanging off the bed. So she didn't follow any of the directives of the 911 operator. To me, it feels as though she didn't want to touch her at all. Now you can say, I mean, anyone who can visualize this scene as it's been described will know that she's probably not alive. But the fact that she was unwilling to help her friend, the fact that she was unwilling to touch her, you could argue the point that, you know, she's upset, she's young, she doesn't, I mean, she's confused. But even still, you don't hear any other crying in the background. You don't hear the other friend that's there with her that's discovered. You would think that both of them would have been in an emotional state that you could hear signs of someone else being in the background. So that concerns me. I do feel like some of the call per se was staged a little bit. I do get that impression. Because if she was involved in the murder, she knew already that she was dead and did not need to do any of the things that the 911 operator was advising her to do because she already knew that she was dead. On the innocent side of it, if she wasn't involved, you would think that she would have been eager to follow the directions of the 911 operator, because then that would have gave her a reason to touch her. That would have gave her a reason for her to have her DNA or fingerprints or hair or whatever on Faith's body, because she would have been following the directives. So it would have been easy for her to create an alibi with handling her body, following the directions of the 911 operator. So it's very curious to me that she did not want to follow any of the directions of the 911 operator. She didn't know the address to where she lived.
That's okay. So that's okay. Go ahead.
She
But
didn't know
that's
the
one of
address to where
yeah.
she lived. She had to go get it. She did give the 911 operator her name. However, the 911 operator didn't catch it the first time, because she kept asking her what her name was, and she avoided questions. All the questions that the 911 operator was asking her, her responses were unrelated to the questions that the 911 operator was asking her. So she was kind of dancing around the questions that she was asking her, and eventually she would answer the 911 operator, but she wasn't very eager to do so. So what are your thoughts on the 911 call?
So a couple of things. First off, I want to say that I try not to get too into what she did, she didn't seem like she wanted to touch the body, stuff like that, because I know for me, I can't say if I walked into a scene like that what my immediate reaction would be. But
That's
there were
understandable.
some things that were concerning to me as well. One, the fact that she didn't know her address. And it would be one thing if she was just like frazzled and was like, "Oh, my address. Oh, wait a minute. Oh shit. Oh, but she made up a story and said, "I just moved around here." And we know that's not true, because she was living there before Faith moved in. She was living there with her
Exactly.
boyfriend. So we know
Exactly.
you've been there at least a couple of months, and that's long enough to know your damn address. I mean, I'm sorry. You're an adult, you're not a child. You're in college. I still remember my off campus. I remember my college address and my off campus address. Like, you're an adult. One of the theories was that it wasn't actually um that it was actually Marisol on the phone, which would account for the hesitancy with knowing the address and even the hesitancy with the name. Because
And
you're
providing
right.
the information. Yeah.
Every time the 911 operator asked her name, she did deflect. It's kind of like, it's kind of like she was like stalling a little bit, because she would say, "Oh my gosh, what's your name? Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. I
There's
can't believe
blood
this."
everywhere. It looks
Yeah,
like someone
it's
else has been here. That's obvious to the fact, but
right.
you're
So it
not
was
answering
like,
the questions.
right.
Right.
It's like, are you trying to stall? Are you not sure what you're supposed to say? I do also find it concerning that at no point in time was it ever mentioned that somebody else was, because again, if it's me, again, I don't know how I would do touching a dead body, so I ain't going to judge that. But I feel like my conversation calling the 911 operator would have been like, me and my friend just
Just
got to
found.
my apartment, and
Right.
like, I feel like at some point that was a long call. At some point you would have heard a voice in the background. I could even see if she was like, "I can't touch the body, let me ask my friend to do it." She never even
And it
said, "Well,
didn't
I can't
sound
do
as if
it."
she was moving about. It didn't
Right.
sound like she
And you
was
just
moving
didn't
about.
hear anybody. Like,
Yeah.
if it's me and you, and you're on the phone with 911, at some point I'm saying something. I'm upset, I'm
And I'm
crying. I mean,
responding to you at some point in the
right, we're
background.
both friends. I'm crying too, or I'm upset, or I'm like, well, how far are the police out, or are they on their way, or I mean, something. So that part was disconcerting to me. Something else that was a little weird, that I thought was very weird to me as well, was she wanted that 911 operator to know that she felt like there had been intruders in the house, because she was like, "There's stuff in here that shouldn't be here, and it's
Yep.
weird." And she said that more than once as well. And again, we know that we haven't gotten to that part, but we know there was a Bacardi bottle, which was actually the murder weapon, and it was covered in blood. Now, this is gonna be a lot of conjecture right here, but I'm gonna speak for myself. I know you're a little bit more OCD than I am, so this might not be applicable to you. But if I'm walking into a room that is a crime scene, and my good friend is laying on the floor murdered,
In
that's
my bed.
probably not the first thing I'm going to notice is a liquor bottle that I normally have in the kitchen is in the bedroom. Because honestly, I probably wouldn't notice it. And even if I did notice it, my mom would probably be like, oh, well, maybe we left it in here. Maybe she got a drink. You know, Faith might have got up in the middle of the night and wanted something else to drink. Maybe it was here from the night before. I don't know how big of a deal that would be to me to point out, oh, there's a bottle here that shouldn't be in here, and then it ended up being the murder weapon. I found out that hit me kind of strange as well. So yeah,
Especially with everything else that you could imagine what that bedroom probably would have looked like. For you to
yeah.
zero
They
in
said it was
on that,
blood splatter, and I mean, it just was
on the
it was a
closet,
nasty scene.
everywhere.
Yeah, it was a nasty scene, and again, I just don't know if that's what would have pointed like why did that stick out to you? I don't know if that's something that would have stuck out to me.
Well, they do say that the Bacardi bottle that was found in the room wasn't broken. It was the murder weapon. It was a Bacardi peach bottle. Um, the police also found a note that was written on one of the fast food bags. It's also important to note that the note that they found didn't have any blood on it. The rest
Right.
of the bedroom and the contents in the bedroom had blood splatter. The comforter,
Everywhere.
the closet, there was blood everywhere, as Karina told us over and over on the 911 call. That was blood everywhere,
Right.
except for on this note.
And what did the note say again?
The note says, "I'm not stupid, bitch, jealous." And it's a very ominous, cryptic note. Could be very unrelated to the case. It could be a form of communication between the girls where, you know, they would leave little notes to themselves about whatever. Part of me doesn't seem to think that this note is related to the murder. Call me crazy, but the fact that it was, or either it was written after the fact.
I think it is directly related to the murder, and it goes to my theory. I'll tell you what my theory is later, but that note is very important to my theory. But go ahead.
The police, the coroner does rule Faith's death as murder, obviously, blunt force trauma to her head. So she was bludgeoned to death with this bottle. The bottle did not break. There's DNA.
Which was interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting to know that someone was bludgeoned to death with the bottle and it didn't break. But
And the
Bacardi bottles are kind of thick. They are kind of thick, and they do carry a little bit of weight.
Golly, you would just think at some point they would have broken. I don't know.
It would have shattered at the very least.
You would think at some point, but daggone.
They do recover DNA in the form of a rape kit. So she was raped, and they were able to generate a DNA profile from the semen that was recovered from the scene. Fast forward to some of the later details that's discovered after the investigation is they've interviewed several potential persons of interest, suspects, people that were related to Faith as far as her male acquaintances, people that they knew. They tested several of those individuals, up to 100 people that they tested, including Eric Takoy Jones. And none of them matched the DNA profile that was found. They were able to come up with some evidence to the killer's identity through the DNA profile. They do believe that he's of Hispanic or Latino descent. They were even able to generate a composite based off of the DNA profile. So it's very interesting to know that they had tested that many people and none of them were a match. So the biggest question is, who killed her? Who do you think killed her?
So a couple of other things I want to just throw out there before we kind of get into the theories and stuff. So one thing in everything that I heard, the police played this really close to the vest. Now, I'm going to just speak a little bit about, in my opinion, I think that had more to do with politics than it had to do with anything else. The police were not very forthcoming in giving out information, even to the family. The local newspaper had to take them to court in order to release some of the
The judge
documents.
sealed all of
Right, the judge, right, sealed it. And so it wasn't until 2 years after the murder that a lot of this, like, they didn't even know anything about the note until 2 years later. And there's also a voicemail, which we're going to talk about in a second. But I want to just speak to that as somebody who lived in that part of North Carolina for a while. That I think the police keeping so much information private and playing it so close to the vest, I think is more political than anything else. Chapel Hill is a college town. You have Chapel Hill, and then right next to Chapel Hill, you have Duke, that is literally, right there. So you have, between Duke and Chapel Hill, you got over 100, give or take, about 100,000 students and faculty in that area. And the last thing you want to do is to create any kind of panic. You don't want it to, you don't want people to start thinking that Chapel Hill isn't a safe place to send your kids or a safe place to live, because it's very upper echelon, even in the area. You know what I mean? And so I think, as I was listening, I don't think it was anything nefarious as far as incompetence or anything like that. I just think it was very political, and they were just trying to protect the reputation of Chapel Hill and the reputation of that area.
But this isn't the only murder that has happened at Chapel Hill, because didn't the student body president was
killed? Yeah.
Yes, was killed and murdered.
But that was solved relatively quickly, and it was a carjacking. So that was, it was unfortunate, but that was one of those things that was like, well, they found the person who did it, and it was a carjacking. And so, yeah, I mean, murders happen, but I just think the way it was handled, I don't think it was like, like last week, the case from last week, I think we were dealing with some straight up incompetence. I don't think that's what this was. I just think it was, we're trying to protect the reputation. We don't really want this on the headline news every night. We want parents, because remember, this was also fall. This was the beginning of the semester. I don't want parents pulling their kids out of school. I don't want to create a panic. We don't want people to start turning this into, like, a serial killer situation. So that's my opinion. Again, just from living in that area for a while, I just know how they are, about protecting that reputation. So, but I just wanted to say that.
I think it is a little combination of a lot of different things. What you're saying could very well be part of the reason why a lot of the evidence in the case was sealed. We've seen this in other murders, just like with the Mary Morris murders. A lot of that documentation and police evidence had been sealed for many, many years before it was released to the public. And I think a lot of that is kind of is a double-sided sword, because they think that it's to protect the integrity of the evidence and, not alert the potential killer or suspects to what evidence that they may have left behind. So if there's any other evidence that can correspond with what they find at the crime scene, can't be destroyed or gotten rid of. So I think a lot of it is to protect the integrity of the case. However, I think after the news media over time, they did petition the courts to at least get access to redacted case files, so that they can have something to help support finding out who killed this young lady. And there was a piece of evidence that had been held on to for at least 3 years. I think we're 9 years into it. This case. I think 3 years later, we learn of this voicemail. And there's a lot of controversy regarding this voicemail. And to me, it's a little confirmation bias for me, because in our mind, we want this voicemail to be the key to the case. We want this voicemail to have captured the murder. But in all reality, is this what we're listening to? So I've kind of went back and forth with this whole voicemail. It's very inaudible. You really can't make out what is being said in the voicemail. It has went through several forensic experts and audio experts who have put together what they believe is Faith's murder in this voicemail. So I'm going to play the voicemail, and this disclaimer, don't listen for anything, because what you think you're going to hear in this voicemail, and I guess having read the transcript, I'm now looking for these things to be said.
You're looking for it to be said.
Yes. Yes. So I'm going to play the voicemail and you tell me what you think. So this voicemail is supposed to have been a pocket dial, butt dial, that came from Faith's phone to another one of Faith's friends, who, when she initially heard the voicemail, she just thought it was just a pocket dial, butt dial, and she deleted it. When she learned of her murder, she then went to her subscriber and had them to retrieve the voicemail and turned it over to the authorities. Yeah. I will say this. Listening to the voicemail, it does definitely sound like there is some type of confrontation. And when I say confrontation, I don't necessarily mean a physical one, whether it's an argument. It does seem to involve more than one party. I tend to agree with the experts, though. It does not sound like it's at a club. Now, it could very well have occurred on, well, no, because they said the voicemail is timestamped at 1:20. And we know that they were still at the club at 1:20 based on the footage from the camera. One thing that I was curious about is, has anyone ever checked the timestamps on the cameras at the club to see if they were possibly incorrect?
Well, one of the things, in one of the videos that I watched was the one with the expert who kind of broke everything down. They said that something that was common with the technology of that time, you know, we're talking about the early 2000s, with those cell phones is that sometimes the timestamps were off with voicemail. That's something that has been corrected now, but back then, so they were saying that the timestamp can't necessarily.
Listen, I know that for a fact. I had Bell Soft Mobility back in the day, and that
Not Bell South Mobility.
Yes, I did. I had Alltel too. Listen,
I remember
I
Bell
remember
South
that.
when I lived in North Carolina.
I do remember having problems with that, especially depending on what type of phone service you had at the time.
Right.
Back then,
And so,
prepaid phones were very popular. And so a
that's
lot
what
of
they were
times the
saying.
time stamping was off on that, because I do remember that with my own personal cell phone back in 2012.
Right. So that's what. The one thing I heard was that they were saying that they didn't want to put too much weight on the timestamp because, like you said, I agree. We do hear music, or at least I think we hear music, but I don't think it was a club because a club would have been a lot louder.
Yes,
a lot louder.
You would have heard you would have heard the bass. You would have heard you would have heard other people. You would have heard other people in the vicinity of them. So I mean, that conversation seemed to be pointed towards the people that were having it. You know, you didn't hear a lot of other background stuff. It definitely sounds like 4 people were involved in the conversation. It definitely sounds like there was another female present, and it definitely sounds like there was at least one other male present. Yeah. Because
now, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Because I do hear parts of the conversation, some of the things that are being said in the conversation, but again, I'm going back to confirmation bias. Having read the transcript now, am I hearing what I've read?
Right. And I feel like what I hear is, I feel like I hear help me. I feel like I hear get off of me. Other than that, and I know I hear music. Other than that, like you said, I would kind of be getting into what I know or what I think what the transcript has said that they think it is. But based on what I feel like I thought I heard get off of me, and I thought I heard help, and I definitely heard screaming.
And I thought music. I heard I will fuck her.
Ooh.
I thought I heard I will fuck her now. Is what I thought I heard.
Okay.
Having viewed the autopsy report, there is contusions or damage or bruising on her hands. In the alleged transcript that the experts have put together, there's a lot of reference to her hands being on fire and her possibly being tied.
Taking it off of her or something like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, can I say something I forgot about? I forgot about this. Going back to the 911 call, a neighbor did speak to one of the podcasts I listened to, and a neighbor was saying that both of the ladies, the young ladies, Marisol and Karina, both of them, their behavior seemed to be a little bit off to her. She said Marisol was crying, but Karina was not crying and was just on her phone texting. And I was wondering, I don't know if you found in your research or not, I'm wondering if the police ever pulled her phone records. Because my question is, who are you? And don't get me wrong, again, she could very well have been texting her family saying, hey, this happened, I need help. She could have been trying to get in contact with, Faith
somebody
family.
come and see about her.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that means there was anything off. I just wonder if they ever pulled her phone records to see who it was that she did reach out to. So, but that was one of the things that they did bring up, was that the neighbor said that she said they weren't hysterical or anything like that, which again, everybody deals with stuff differently. Like, I wouldn't have been hysterical. I don't think I would have been.
Well, the neighbor, it's also important to note that the neighbor also reported that they heard a loud thud the night before.
Yeah, they did. They did.
Which this was a neighbor that was directly under Karina's apartment. But I feel like that's all you heard, because I feel like an attack that violent, that brutal, you should have heard way more than a loud thud. You should have heard screaming. You should have heard crying. You should have heard a struggle. I mean, especially at that earlier hour in the morning, at that time in the night.
Right, because even if they were playing music, right, and that's what I was gonna say. Even if they were playing music to try to cover all of that up, then I feel like she would have remembered that. Like, they were playing their music really loud. Like, I think that she would have remembered that as well. So yeah, I can agree with you on that. That you would think that she would have heard more than just that loud thud, because those apartments are not that thick. Like the walls are
Yes.
not that thick. Like, like I know,
If
we've
she
all
heard
lived
the
in an
bottle,
apartment.
and what they're trying to allude is that they heard the murder weapon being thrown to the floor or falling to the floor
Yeah,
or
I
whatever.
don't know about
Or
that
it could
part, but
just simply be that they may have heard when she fell off the bed.
that could have been it too. Yeah, that when her body hit the floor, that could
Yeah.
have been it. Yeah.
You
But
know.
okay, I'm sorry. I remembered that part, and I wanted to just make sure we threw that in there. But so back to the voicemail. That I know that they let her father hear it, and I mean, far be it for me to discredit her father, but her father definitely said that's my daughter's voice. Like, I know that that's my daughter screaming for help. He felt like that's what he heard. As far as the rest of it,
I
again,
don't have
like
any
you
doubt that
said,
it was her voice, because at the end of the day, it did come from her phone, which was
right,
in
right.
her possession, as far as we know, was in her possession the entire time. So whether or not the phone call came from the apartment or at the club, we knew that it was in Faith's possession. So reasonably, yes, you're going to hear Faith's. But what we can't discern is, what are we hearing? We cannot make out what we're hearing. I mean, and I don't want to discredit anyone who does this professionally and say, these audio experts say this is what we hear. So, I have to take that with a level of profession. I mean, this is what they do for a living.
Right. And they were
So
able to filter out some of the sounds. And, one of the ones I listened to, one of the ones I watched, the guy that they had doing the expert, I mean, he's, like you said, he's done this for a living, and he's actually gotten people convicted based off of what it is that he does. So like you said,
yes,
far be it for me to say it's not what he says it is. I just, with my naked ear, without all of his technology, I can only go by what I hear. But do you have a copy of the transcript to just kind of read through what they thought it was? Because I remember some of what they said,
I will hit
but I didn't know if you have it.
I'll hit a few points. I really don't want to spend too much time on the voicemail, because again, I think a lot of what we get from this transcript is what everyone thinks that they hear, and with my naked ear, I can't hear it either. So I don't want to necessarily confirm that that's exactly what's being said. But
Okay.
transcript goes on with a female that says, "You're bullshitting." Then there's a male voice that says, "What kind of person lies like this?" And it's said that Faith says, "I don't know what you're talking about." And then the male voice says, "Did you fuck your own inaudible obsession?" Faith says, "I didn't do it." The male says, "This is all fucking her good, her description." Female says, "Why?" Male says, "You, because it belongs to you. Fucking bullshit story, you personally. I'm going to kick your face, bitch. I figured out this bullshit." And I'll just stop at this, because I mean, I can go on and continue to read the transcript, because we don't know who these voices are. We don't necessarily know this to be Faith's voice, other than the fact that the father did identify that he hears his daughter's voice. But the responses to the conversation, we may or may not know that this female is Faith. So
Right. I agree. We don't need to dig too deep, but I just,
that's a rabbit hole.
It's definitely a rabbit hole.
That's a rabbit
Definitely a rabbit hole.
Let's talk a little bit about Eric for a minute. On the day that Faith was murdered, Eric made a very cryptic and bizarre post on Facebook that says, "Forgive me for what I'm about to do." It says, "Dear Lord, forgive me for all the sins and the sins I may commit today. Protect me from the girls who don't deserve me and the ones who wish me dead today." Now, that's a very ominous post to put on Facebook the day that she's murdered. Eric also has a violent history, and he had motive. He lived in an apartment, so obviously he knew his way around. He knew how to gain entry to the apartment. And let's just take into consideration that maybe Karina and Faith did share a key to the apartment. I don't know why she wouldn't have went and gotten an extra key made for her roommate, but Faith was temporarily staying there, and maybe she had not been there long. I don't think I've read anywhere where they've said how long that Faith had been living with her. At this point, I think it's a couple of weeks, maybe. I think.
Maybe.
At least that's the impression that I'm left with. There's been a couple of weeks. I think in this time frame, Eric has moved out, Faith has kind of moved in type deal. So, he's probably upset the fact that, he's been kicked out, Faith's there now. So maybe they did leave Cherokee. And maybe maybe it wasn't uncommon of her to leave the door unlocked, even when they lived together. Maybe when Eric and Karina lived together, maybe it was not uncommon for her to leave the apartment unlocked. Nothing has never been said about that. Is this a characteristic of hers that she's done regularly? But
right.
He has the most motive, but he's cleared as a suspect because his DNA doesn't match, and his DNA is not found at the scene of the crime, which I thought that would be kind of odd. Given the fact that he's lived there and he spent so much time there in that apartment, you would think that they would have found his DNA somewhere in that apartment.
That's what, and I thought the same thing. I said, now this man used to live there. They didn't find his DNA anywhere in the apartment. Like, I mean, I'm not saying maybe they're really good, cleaners. Maybe, they scrub
These
the
are
apartment.
college kids.
But that's what I was gonna say too. But I know too many college kids that were that. I mean, clean is one thing, but to not have any DNA of somebody that used to live there, like that's professional level. You know what I mean? Like nothing in the kitchen, nothing in the bathroom. Like I don't know, but okay.
And it's a 1-bedroom apartment, so when he lived there, that means him and Karina shared a bed,
right?
Which, at best, you would think that his DNA would have been found in the bedroom.
Which is where Faith was killed. So it's kind of like,
yeah. So we now have a face without a name, and that's the craziest part about it is, and I get so frustrated when we have so much evidence, and there's a lot of things of evidentiary value for this case that remains unsolved. And I'm not going to say it's not because the lack of effort on the authorities, because the authorities they've had a very exhausting investigation. I mean, hundreds of people that they've interviewed, the DNA profile of the potential killer, the composite. So they've invested a lot into trying to solve this case, but yet they bear no fruit. And why is that? How can we have so much evidence in this case and not even a viable suspect to compare it to?
I don't know. It's very, very interesting. Like you said, it's not from lack of effort. I mean, they did test the DNA. They tested the DNA of pretty much everybody at the club that night.
Yeah.
Like you said, over 100 people.
And I think everyone that was interactive with them on the campus.
Yeah. They said that, they brought Karina in for multiple interviews. So there's clearly, in my mind, for them to keep bringing her in to question her, I feel like either they don't believe her story or they are getting more information and they need more information from her, because I just feel like, how many times can she tell you the same thing unless you're looking for her to lie, catch her in a lie, or looking for, you got some information.
Where at this point they're trying to break
past her.
Yeah,
right. That's what I'm saying. So that makes me feel like, so then y'all don't believe her. Y'all think that she knows more than what she's saying. But her, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying.
So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about some theories then. I'll let you start off since you let me start off last week. So what are your theories?
So, and I know, I come up with these crazy theories. So work with me on this one.
Wait till you hear mine.
So when you go back to that note, remember I told you that the note made sense based on my theory. So honestly, I feel like there was some sort of love triangle, and either Karina or Marisol, one of the two, because I believe Marisol was a part of it as well. Somewhere she's in. I don't know if she found out on the back end or the front end, but I feel like she's involved. I feel like there's some sort of love triangle. Either they thought Faith was messing with a particular person, or they knew Faith was messing with a particular person. And I think it has something to do with Brandon. We know that Brandon and Faith used to mess around with each other, but was Brandon messing around with one of the other ladies? Was there something? Because I go back to them trying. I feel like those messages that were coming from Faith's phone, I feel like Faith was already dead. I don't think those were coming from Faith. I think they were coming from Karina. And I feel like they were trying to set Brandon up. I think that's why she left the door unlocked. They were trying to get Brandon to come to that apartment. And I feel like that's why she left the door unlocked, so that if Brandon showed up and he walked in, then he's caught with the body, or at least at the very least
on the
his
scene
DNA,
of the crime.
Right. At the very least, his DNA is in the apartment. She conveniently leaves out, right? She found somewhere to go at 4:00 in the morning.
With a
And
stomach
I mean,
ache.
right. I mean, she's a college student, so booty calls are what they are. I'm not judging her. But I feel like that was more of, a alibi situation than anything else. That note that was on the bag, I think, was left. Basically, I know what you did, or at least I think I know what you did. Now, I don't know whether it's true or not, but I feel like there was some sort of love triangle in there. And I feel like they were trying to set Brandon up for it, because Brandon has not been cooperative with the police either. And I find that to be interesting, because he really has no reason not to talk to the police. Like, he really doesn't have anything to do with it. They just want to try to find out more information about why, like, why do you think, this happened or that happened? But he hasn't been cooperative either. So I find that to be interesting. But that's my theory. My theory is that there was some sort of love triangle. And I do think that the girls set them up. And I think Eric was part of it. And I'm going to tell you who I think did it. You ready to hear who I think did it?
Yep.
Eric's ex-roommate. Eric had an ex-roommate who had a very violent past, has been known to beat women up and hit women, and they did not get his DNA.
Okay. Wow. Very good theory. I'm in orbit of your theory.
Okay.
A little bit. I'm in the orbit of your theory a little bit. For me, I go to her relationships. It has been gently alluded to that Faith has had several casual relationships with male partners.
Mm-hmm.
So it's reasonable to believe that the police has identified and possibly tracked down all those partners through her communication. I mean, because in the search warrant, they took laptops. They took two Lenovo laptops, an IBM, their social media accounts, their phone records. And I'm sure all those male partners that she has been intimately involved with has been cleared through DNA. Okay. So I'm going down a bit of a rabbit hole here.
All right.
What if they missed one? What if they missed one that they didn't know about? What if it was an individual that she had a sexual relationship with and hadn't been identified by law enforcement? And this person could have came by the apartment that night, and whether consensually or non-consensually had sex with her and ultimately end up murdering her. Maybe this person sees the message come from Brandon's phone. Who's this? And he's there and like, who's this texting you at 4:00 in the morning type deal? And maybe the murder becomes a crime of passion, heat of the moment type thing. And the murder weapon is a weapon of opportunity. You know, he grabs the Bacardi bottle and just strikes her with it, starts beating her. This would explain the DNA not matching anyone that they've investigated because they're not aware of this person. But the only thing that kind of strikes a big question mark for me in that theory is, how would she have communicated with this person? Because they would have found any type of communication that she would have had with this individual through social media or through her phone records or whatever. So it can't be someone that she's directly communicated with. It could be someone that was harboring a crush on her. Maybe someone that she met at the club at night that may have followed them home.
Mm.
and wanted some. And maybe forced himself on her.
Okay.
My next theory is maybe she did have sex that night consensually with a casual partner, but that person did murder her.
Okay.
Maybe because obviously there's a lot that's happening this night. And okay, so they're out at the club. They've been hanging out. They've been flirting with guys. They've been drinking. They've texted 2 or 3 different guys since they've gotten home, trying to invite Brandon over. Then Karina ends up texting another guy to come pick her up. So I mean, there's a lot of different paths that they're going down this night. It just wasn't a night out at the club. After and the thing is, if she's sick enough to want to leave the club early and go home, within an hour of you getting home, all of a sudden you feel better now, and you're ready to go lay up with a dude.
Because I think that was the setup. I don't think
I agree
there was
with
nothing
that.
wrong with her.
I don't think nothing was wrong with her either. I think that she was lured from that club back to the apartment for that murder to take place. What I can't understand is who. But is it possible that Faith may have had sex earlier that day or earlier that night, and the DNA is not even the killer? So if that be the case, the DNA is actually causing confusion to the case, because we're thinking that the murderer is actually the person who raped her, but maybe she had sex with someone else, and this person that killed her didn't have sex with her at all. And my last theory does kind of involve a love triangle, but I point to Eric. Okay. I think that Eric was harboring a grudge against Faith in regards to her breaking up their relationship and urging her roommate to go get the restraining order. I think he was very vindictive and upset with her about doing that, and he was probably trying to get back with Karina. And Faith was probably in her ear saying, he's no good, don't fool with him, he's trouble, he's violent, he's this. Going back to the roommate, I do believe that Eric's roommate, I've always said this from day one, that there was a third party that was involved that was not someone that was initially looked at by the authorities. I do believe that Karina and Eric were there and witnessed the crime take place. Some kinky, freaky, we're going to murder her and we're going to live happily ever after together. But it's also important to note that Eric and Karina did get back together after her death. And Eric has been somewhat cooperative with the authorities, but he's not been so kind to the press and people reaching out to him in regards to the case. He's been very standoffish in that regards. But either way, I think her death has something to do with Karina. Even if it doesn't involve Eric, and I'm sorry, Eric, because of your violent past and the nature of your relationship with Karina, you are the prime suspect. I mean, even in the fact that you've been cleared by DNA, you're still the most interesting person of interest in this case. So, I mean, guilty until proven innocent. And so I feel like Karina's involved some way, some shape, form, or fashion. I do believe that the note that was on the fast food bag was written by her, probably with her non-writing hand, and brought back to the crime scene. I don't believe that note was written the night of the murder. The bag is too clean. In a room full of blood, blood is pooled everywhere. There's no way in the world that someone's going to go wash their hands, write this note, go back into the bedroom. And I mean, who's going to spend that much time at a crime scene? And I don't feel like a male killer would have wrote that letter. I don't feel like if a male murdered her and bludgeoned her and raped her, I don't feel like he would have wrote that note. What purpose would it have served for him to do so? Unless it was written by Eric or Eric's roommate on behalf of him and left there. The only person I would see having a reason to write that would be Karina. And that's where I'm kind of stuck at.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not sure, like, as far as the love triangle part of it. I don't have it all fleshed out, but I definitely feel like there's a love triangle there, whether it's real or perceived. Because again, it may or may not be real. It could be perceived. I believe that Marisol knows more. I definitely believe Karina knows more than what she's saying. And like I said, all of this is just my opinion. If anybody's listening, these are my opinions. I'm not indicting anyone, but just based on the information as presented and the way I interpret it, that's just how I feel. But I do feel like I was looking at one of the uh, stories that I was looking at was talking about the advances in technology and how with that DNA sample, they have the technology now to be able to even try to find you through family members.
Genealogy. Yeah.
So I believe that this case is going to get solved. I don't think it's going to, because I just feel like the police, first of all, I feel like the police have more information than what they've shared. And I think that I think they're just, like you said, I think they're just one DNA test away from solving it. Um, because even if they get the DNA, let's just go along with your theory. Let's say they get the DNA and they say, oh, well, this is just somebody that she slept with earlier that day. Maybe that was somebody that was also sleeping with somebody else in her life. And maybe now oh, well, that's where the love triangle comes from. Oh, that's where the note comes from. I just think it'll give them some breadcrumbs into where it is. So I think I
The
don't think this
DNA
case
is
is going to stay
definitely the
cold.
key to solving the case. Even if my scenario is accurate, that she did have sex with someone else that did commit the crime, I still think
Right.
it's the key to leading us to an answer that has been undiscovered. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what DNA always does. I mean, it gives us
Yeah.
those answers
And I think
to,
it's going to be one of those weird freak things where, because nowadays a lot of times they collect DNA, from criminals and stuff like that. I think it's going to be one of those freak things that somebody else may be in the system one day with that DNA, and
and
they
there
just
is a
they
possible
make the match.
theory. I mean, there is a possible theory. Someone could have simply observed Karina leaving the apartment that night and not locking the door. And it's a crime of opportunity again, where someone just happens by and sees that the apartment is unlocked. I mean, and goes in, and the rest is history. The
I
reason why
don't
I
know.
lean more so towards that theory is, if it is not the people that are important to the case, Karina, Eric, Marisol, Eric's roommate, Brandon, if it's not in that little circle of people, the whole Bacardi bottle just doesn't make sense. I don't see anyone coming to someone's home to commit murder and not bring a murder weapon with them. And of all things to pick up is a Bacardi bottle. That's a very personal kill right there. To bludgeon someone to death and then have sex
Right,
with
because
them.
if the Bacardi bottle was in the kitchen as
They
they
picked that up as
said,
they were entering
you
into the
mean to tell
bedroom.
me that you go in a kitchen to get a weapon and you pick up a Bacardi bottle? You don't
And
pick up
not
a
a knife?
knife. You don't
Right.
pick up a skillet. Like, that's what you pick up when you are looking for a weapon in a kitchen. You're in a kitchen looking for a weapon. So I don't know. That's weird to me.
That's weird to me because, again, it's a college. It's a college apartment. And I know what my first apartment looked like when I was in college. Everything didn't have a place. Now, my
Right. That's what.
home
Yeah.
now, everything has a place and it belongs in that place. But I can
Right.
tell you, right back in my early 20s, there were liquor bottles, beer bottles laying all around the place. And so I don't see anyone coming in the middle of the night and not knowing their way around the home, because it seems like the bedroom was upstairs, not knowing their way around the home. It's possibly dark in the apartment, and they turn on a light. The first thing they see is a Bacardi bottle, and I'm going to pick it up, and that's going to be a murder weapon. Here's another question. There were no fingerprints found on the bottle. There was no DNA found on the bottle other than hers. So I just... the
Right.
crime of
So
opportunity, to me, I feel like if someone was going to break into the apartment to commit sexual assault and then subsequently murder, would have strangled her maybe, would have brought a weapon with them. They would have forcible entry into the apartment. I feel like this apartment being unlocked is the key to whoever gained entry to the apartment that night and knew exactly where to find her and was inept, I guess, and not brought a weapon with them and just decided to pick up the bottle and use it to commit murder. Well, I guess that wraps up everything that we can talk about this case. If anyone has any evidence or any tips, information to share, anything about this case that can help solve it, please call your local authorities. You can also call the Chapel Hill Police, their Crime Stoppers at 919-968-2834. Let's see if we can get some justice for Faith. See, can we get this case solved? And there is
still, I think they said a $50,000 reward that has never been claimed. So if you know something, I mean, I hate to say it like that, but money is a motivator. If you know something, there is reward money if it leads to a conviction. So.
Yeah, because I think at one point the reward money was $29,000. So you saying it's 50 now?
That's what I heard of one of, because some of the Chapel Hill boosters. Have put money in. So, but even if I'm wrong, if it's 29,000, that's 29,000. But I thought I heard 50,000. So,
well, these are our thoughts and theories. Of course, we're not experts in any of this, and it's just based on our opinions of what we've heard about the case. Of course, everyone has their right to justice, and have to be proven guilty in the court of law. So
yeah,
hopefully one day we'll get some answers.
All right. Well, this was fun.
All right. Well, we'll see what we'll do next week.
All right.
All right. Peace.
Until next week. Peace.
So if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app and go to Anchor FM to get started.
You are now listening to TSF Entertainment Podcast.